What's going on, guys? We got your local ham sandwich here with the first deck profile on the channel. What I've got here is my second place OTS Locals Horus Centur-Ion list. You've probably seen this in the past few videos. Just really enjoying the deck. It's a synchro deck. I really like synchro summoning. It's my favorite summoning mechanic. And it's based on my favorite anime, Gurren Lagann, so I'm just really big fan of this deck. Pretty powerful. Yeah, so I'm just going to jump into the profile here and kind of take it as we go. We're going to start with the pretty standard Centur-Ion engine lineup here. That will be the 3 Centur-Ion Primera. It's your Stratos. It's one of your many one-card combos. Search you anything you need, mostly the field spell, but if you already have the field spell, can search you anything else for follow-up or for an extra interruptions. Just really nice. A little kind of sucks that it's the only tuner. That's kind of the one big problem I have with the deck, is it's the only tuner we have. But I mean, not much I can do about that until they've announced a new tuner, right? Next, of course, 3 Trudea, another one-card combo, get you into the Primera as a normal summon, or even a summon off of the stand-up. If you have additional follow-up, to get you to your 12 off of just a stand-up, but again, might as well be an additional Stratos. Can get you to your monsters and get you to your spells and traps pretty much through that. I opt to play 2 Emmet. Some people play 1. I think 2 is fine, because if you draw it, then you can't set it off of stand-up and you can't set it off of Trudea, so I like to have the 2. And it's still a pretty good hand trap. If necessary, you can hold it in your hand, and then in your opponent's turn, if they try to get rid of something on your board, you can tag it out, and it's pretty handy in that regard. Then for the spells and traps, you got the 3 stand-up and the 4th copy of stand-up, that is the terraforming. Very nice field spell. I love that it lets you single summon on the opponent's turn. Can't be destroyed while you control a Centurion monster card, which is really nice. Gets rid of most of the spot removal besides Cosmic Cyclone. Almost a 1-card combo, not quite. It can get you to Primera and the Monster Zone and Trudea in the back row to get you to a Legatia on the opponent's turn, but with just stand-up, you need more follow-up. Ideally, your Horus monsters or Emblama Oath. Speaking of Emblama Oath, staple 3 of, kind of sucks that it's not searchable, but it gets you anything you want. It plays through Droll and Ash because it's going to set them and place them, so it's pretty free. Luckily, there's no hand trap yet that will kind of get through placing effects, so it's really nice. Wish it was searchable, but then that could be a little too good or whatever, you know. Last Centurion spell trap is the Phalanx. Nice one of, could run it at 2. I think I like, especially the banishing effect during this format at 2 is probably good. I only own 1 out of 6 boxes that I pulled. I only got 1 of them, but I could see the argument for running 2. And I don't choose to run bonds since I have the 2 Emmet. I think it's fine. If you run 1 Emmet, you can run the bonds kind of interchangeably, and then the bonfire, kind of standard, mandatory in this deck almost. It turns you into 16 1-card combos instead of 13, something like that. Get you to Primera. It plays more into Droll, which kind of sucks because Droll is kind of heavy this format. But if you have bonfire in your hand with another starter, usually with the ratios, you're going to see more than 1 of your 1-card starters. So if you have, like, let's say you just have Trudea or Primera, you want to prioritize those over bonfire so you don't get drolled ahead of searching your stand-up. Another thing that does kind of play into the droll here is the other main engine of the deck, that is the Horus engine, the 3 Imseti, 1 Happy, and the 2 King Sark. With this, usually you want to prioritize your Centurion engine over this in terms of thinking about Droll. Really good. If they don't have Droll, you can get the draw off of Imseti and usually draw into a 1-card starter, which is really nice because you have your 8 bodies available. So if you draw like stand-up or terraforming, you can get through that way and still get to your synchro on your turn, which is nice. And it's just nice to kind of leave these on board too. If you have your full combo, you can just let them sit in case any of your opponent removes anything. They just activate. You can use them for rank 8s. Having the send effect from King Sark is really nice. Gotta remember it's once per turn. If you saw the Fire King, or no, sorry, the Snake Eye Rescue Ace video, did make that mistake. It is once per turn, but it's really nice because it gets around Amplo Whale. So if you attack into Princess, you can send it and an Amplo Whale won't trigger, which is awesome. So just, yeah, really good utility, extra 8s. Again, I almost want to find a way to find an engine that has extra tuners. Could go super heavy, but I don't think you want to go both super heavy and the Horus engine, and I just like the Horus engine better because super heavy kind of limits what else you can play in terms of non-engine. Then speaking of non-engine, we got 15 slots. We've got the 3 Ash Blossom, 3 Droll and Lockbird, 3 Nibiru, 2 Imperm, 3 Serpali, and the 1 Called by the Grave. For the Fire King format here, I think Nib, Droll, and Serpali, if you can fit it, those are almost mandatories. Really good against that matchup, and Droll Nib especially also really good against Rogue. Like if you saw the Raid Raptor video that I posted, Nib goes crazy against Raid Raptor. Serpali also good against a lot of Rogue, or a lot of less, or tier 1, tier 2 decks. Serpali crazy against Voiceless because it just gets over the Skull Guardian. The one thing I would think about changing here is for locals, I ran 3 Ash Blossom because I was almost expecting branded to be an issue. Didn't see any branded at locals, so I think I want to cut Ash Blossom down to 2. Ash and Imperm specifically are kind of weak this format. Ash, if you're playing against the fire deck, you Ash any of their stuff, they're going to go Hita, steal the Ash, and then make a Promethean Princess off of that. Just give them free material. Kind of sucks. Imperm against the Fire King deck, they got 3 Kieran, so if you Imperm target anything they have, they can just cure and pop it and get around that targeting. And against Voiceless too, they can't be targeted, so a little weaker on that regard too if you're playing against Voiceless. But I think just having 2 and 2 for less meta matchups or like lower tier matchups is just good. They're good all around cards. So again, in terms of the main, or in terms of the deck, I think in terms of the non-engine is what I'm gonna want to be what I want to change mostly here. I almost want to bump the deck up to 42, cut an Ash, and then put in 3 Talents. Talents goes really hard this format, especially against stuff like IP and Flamberge. They're always going to activate and your Talents going to be online. But if they droll you on your Bonfire or whatever, or Ash the Primera, you can always draw 2 cards if they Ash you or steal something from their hand. Pretty good to have. Overall, the main deck, I'm really kind of liking how it's coming together, this format. Again, just besides those changes, or I guess that one change, not a whole lot to kind of complain about. Pretty consistent. I'm not really gonna miss my 1-card starters. If I'm bricking, I'm only seeing stand-up, which is sort of it's a play, but it's not your full play, so you're gonna have to kind of bank on your non-engine in your hand there. In terms of extra deck, I opt to run 3 Legatia. Could run 2. I think I'm even considering bumping down Legatia to 2 and running in Final Sigma for the shifter matches, especially Flu. Flu kind of crumbles to Final Sigma because they can't tribute it. And then in theory against Cash, you can kind of get around their large monsters without triggering effects that would affect the Final Sigma. But rates off is kind of an issue in terms of boosting their attack. Excuse me. But yeah, 3 Legatia good, probably could go 2, but I like 3 for extra grind games. Crimson Dragon, you got to play it in the level 12 deck here. Really good. One thing I've learned the hard way in terms of online testing is that if you go Crimson Dragon Legatia, they're both lights. So if your opponent's running Super Poly, that is unfortunately something that can go wrong. Not a lot to do around that, I suppose. I mean, Final Sigma may help that because you can just make Final Sigma instead of Crimson, but then that kind of, you have to sort of play differently and again, bank on your non-engine, but it is theory. And then in terms of our Crimson Dragon targets, the Blazar, the Supernova, and of course the Calamity. Gotta play Calamity in this deck. Once they ban it, I mean, it's gonna suck, but we can find ways around it, especially with the Legacy of Destruction sort of support. but Calamity auto win against a lot of decks. Supernova is really clutch sometimes, I've found. It's just a big beater if you have tuners in grave, so you can get over large towers, especially against the Raid Raptor matchup. Or even if you've got enough tuners, you can get over the Skull Guardian, which is nice. And even against like Fire King, I just like banishing the whole board. They just lose a bunch of their engine. And then Blazar, it's an Omni-Negate and a Battle Fader. It's nice to have. You can kind of interchange between these two if you've already done Calamity based on the matchup, but just really nice to have the utility. I like running 3. Some people run just the 2, but I like having the Supernova for a really impactful board wipe. Then the last synchro is going to be the Scarlight for time. I find it a bit harder to make the 8s in the deck in terms of the setup for that, but it is a card you need to have for time. Other option is Gaga Cowboy, but again, either way, if you have 2 4s, you're going to make the synchro 8 or the rank 4. So it's the same kind of difference there. That's it for the synchros. Move on to the EXCs here. Since we have the Horus engine, I opt to run a few rank 8s. So I've got the Hope Harbinger, the Dingirsu, and the Garunix Eternity. Once the Photon Lord gets reprinted, I'm going to replace it with replace Hope Harbinger with that, because it's just a spell negate and a battle redirection, so you can change it for the Omni Negate, but still good. Garunix Eternity, really good board wipe if you need it, because if you start with your Horus play and you're not drolled, you can make Garunix Eternity to pop the board and then go into your synchro play and just go in for a bunch of damage. And then Dingirsu is nice spot removal. It's also some decent protection. Yeah, I don't play Zeus, but in theory, if you play Zeus, you can use any of these to make a Zeus. Last 60s monster is going to be Typhon. When I first started playing the deck, I honestly forgot about Typhon a lot of the time. So there's probably some matchups where I could have just made Typhon after getting ashed and kind of chilled for a little bit. But Typhon, really good card. Kind of sucks that it locks you out of summoning after you summon it, but it's got to be the trade-off, right? Really good card, good spot removal, kind of shuts down a lot of decks in terms of what they can do. So yeah, just nice utility to have. Those are the EXC monsters. In the last 3 slots, I've got the SP Little Knight and the 2 Super Poly targets, the Mud Dragon and the Garura. In theory, Super Poly makes SP easier to make because you can steal opponent's monster going into Garura or Mud Dragon. With the Super Poly, if they still have something on board, if they have something in grave you don't like, you can use a Horus monster, or I guess just even one of your Centurions if you have the availability to make SP. Going Garura into SP is nice because you get more advantage and then you banish another card. Doesn't come up a lot. I think this OTS locals that I played at only came up once, and I was just kind of fishing for a draw with Garura. But it's good in theory. I think if I had Earth Golematic Mister, I would replace SP with it, because Earth Golem just kind of insulates Super Poly to be more versatile against the Fire King boards. But I'm going to keep testing the SP and see if I like it or not, may cut it for something else like that. And then the side deck, this is also something I'm going to change quite a bit. If you saw the feature matches, some of these cards just kind of don't come up in those matches that I played, but they're good in theory for the format. So the 3 Bell, the 3 Cosmic, the 3 Soul Release, 3 Droplet, and 3 Evenly Matched. Cosmic for sure staying in against Fire King, against Voiceless. Fire King, you just pop the field spell. They lose their board and have to force all their interactions, which is nice. Voiceless, you get rid of the barrier and you can get rid of their things through targeting, which is nice. Evenly for sure staying in, crazy good against the Fire King matchup because they don't have a spell trap negate. If they have SP, it's fine, they can kind of tag out some of their monsters, but they're going to be losing some of their engine for sure face down in the banished zone, or the banishment, I guess it's called now. Droplet, I absolutely love in this deck because once you finish your combo on your opponent's turn, you've got stand up on board and you've got Trudea in the back row. So you've automatically got 2 spots, or 2 materials for Droplet without affecting your hand. So you can kind of conceal your hand traps and use your on-board stuff, which is nice. You are sacrificing your follow-up with Trudea, but if you keep Legatia on board, you just bring it back in the end phase and you replace that that advantage. Plus, in the combo on your opponent's turn, you're going to search with True Daya for another stand-up. So you've already got that kind of insulated and the follow-up ready. Soul Release and Ghost Bell I'm iffy on. I think for Ghost Bell, I'd probably cut it down to 2. So against the Fire King matchup, or the Rescue Ace or Snake Eye or whatever, swap out the 2 Ash for the 2 Bell. Pretty easy swap out. Most of those decks are going to use the Graveyard, especially with Promethean Princess, so it's nice to have. And then Soul Release I'm iffy on. So if you saw the Fire King matchup pre-Phantom Nightmare, obviously it was incredibly impactful. But it does kind of win more, so I'm almost like kind of want to get rid of it for something else. Maybe keep testing it. I'm not sure. Maybe just cut it down to 2. But it's not it's not mandatory, this format, I've found. It's nice to have, and you can get rid of some of your Fire King opponent's engine, especially since they only run 1 Garunic, so you can just get rid of the Garunics, which is nice. But again, not necessarily something that needs to be there, so probably going to change that out for sure. But overall, Droplet specifically I think was really good on Tuesday. Evenly I saw it, but I kind of went down a different line and didn't really need it. The matchups were kind of interesting for this side deck. I kind of had to bank on the main deck NonEngine instead of the side deck, but in theory this is good, and I think mostly goes unchanged. But yeah, so that's the side deck. A couple changes are cards that I may consider in terms of making changes. Cards I don't currently play that I may not play. Final Sigma is good in theory against Flu, especially. Shifter decks are going to be more popular because they're sort of anti-meta, and Flu specifically just kind of getting rid of everything on board with the normal summon with Forgotten Winds. Another good cosmic target, by the way. It just kind of sucks. So if you can just sit on a Sigma and just keep punching over M-Pen, that's really nice. That would be one of the few cards here that I would kind of consider potentially playing. I've got Lulu Wallilith here. In theory, a good negate if your opponent's playing extra deck heavy. But it is smaller than the rest of your 12s, and probably not necessarily as good as some of your generic 12s. It can recur Primera, which I think is really nice, but I probably won't play it. Rigger Berserker I have cut out of the extra deck. I was playing it for a while. Cut it out in favor of some of the Super Poly targets. Again, decently good. You can just kind of just sit on it if you get the availability to make an 8, and then you can banish an opponent's monster. So if you're playing against Fire King, you can banish their 1 Garunix or their 1 Ponix, which is nice. And it has some battle effects and stuff, but probably not entirely necessary. Just nice to have. Zeus. I mean, this deck can make it hard, which is nice. Just overlay 2 Legatia. I don't know if it's necessary. If I start playing triple tack, maybe more of a consideration, but the extra deck is pretty tight, so probably something that I'm kind of leaning against. And then since I play 2 Emmet, I'm just not going to play Bonds. If you play 1 Emmet, you can play Bonds instead of the second Emmet, which is nice. It's an extra target. You can chain block your Legatia, which is okay, but Legatia doesn't necessarily need to be chain blocked unless the opponent just needs to hold Nash to prevent the pop. But that's kind of a niche interaction. I don't think it's always going to come up. So no Bonds for me. And then some of the cards I'm considering that will go in, most likely, mentioned it already. Triple Tack is really nice this format, especially against Fire King. They're always going to fire off the IP and the Flamberge and all that. So that's going to come up. If you get Drolled or Ashed, if you get Ashed, you draw 2 to try to get more follow-up. If you get Drolled, look at the opponent's hand. It's nice. Going second, you can even just steal something that's important for extra damage. Probably going to even bump up the deck to 42 to fit the talents. I think it's just that good, this format. Duster, I think, is just an additional good side deck target instead of just the 3 Cosmic. Especially for, again, Voiceless, which is going to have a lot of back row. Rescue Ace especially going to have a lot of back row. Potentially even if Fire King has a lot of back row through the FKI. Duster's really nice because he gets over the Sanctuary protection, since it's going to pop them both. So probably going to put that in. And then the last thing I'm considering here, which seems good in theory, I'm going to look at Gravity Collapse. If you don't know what this card does, basically, when your opponent would summon a monster, you can negate the summon by sending a face-up Synchro you control to the grave, and then destroy the monster, and your opponent cannot summon for the rest of the turn. Which is really nice because if you consider that Legatia is kind of just a body on board through most of the turn until the end phase, if you end on, say you have stand up and Gravity Collapse, you're going to end on just Legatia on the opponent's turn, and then it's kind of just sitting there until the end phase to get some advantage back. So you can sort of sacrifice that advantage to lock your opponent further, because you already have the stand up in hand from the Primera summoning, most likely. So you can sort of just lock them out, and then if you have Phalanx in grave, it just puts that Legatia online. So in theory, pretty nice. I think I'm going to try it. Obviously, I think Judgment could also be a call here, but I like that this does not affect your life points, so it's better in time. Judgment's good for spell and traps, but I think we can get around that just fine. So I'll probably try Gravity Collapse, probably also try Judgment. Just some things to keep in mind, consider here. But that is going to be the deck profile there. Hope you all enjoyed it. If you have any thoughts or anything you think I could change that I didn't already mention, definitely mention those below for me. If you are interested in the deck, I highly recommend checking it out. It's really powerful. I like that it just makes a lot of big monsters, which a lot of decks just kind of struggle to get over. Pretty versatile in your deck space. And if you are playing the deck currently and you have any additional sort of different techs that I missed, definitely let me know. Definitely let me know if you're enjoying the deck, all that. And let me know if you want to see any other deck profiles. I can definitely get some of the other first place or second place or whatever deck profiles on the channel from the locals. I even got a deck profile lined up for one of my friends that topped the regional, so keep an eye out for that. And yeah, like, comment, subscribe, let me know what you liked, what you didn't, all that stuff. I'll see you next time.